to heaven.
Cameras on? Okay, I'm calling the regular council meeting for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 to order. It is 6:37. Ms. Monroe, if you'd like to call the roll.
Mayor Don Barnard.
Here. Present.
Tiffany Hollis.
Here.
Ryan Green.
Present.
Dave Seelan.
Present?
Jeff Barr.
Here.
Wes Coble.
Present.
Bob Orsini.
Present.
Tonight for invocation, we have Mr. Dave Seelan. If we could please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd like to do it next time. Dave's getting all the fun.
You can do it next time.
Lord, we ask that you guide Johnstown City Council's efforts. We ask for a spirit of collaboration where each council member's strengths can create a unified whole. Help us to work together seamlessly and to learn from each other so that we may achieve our goals in a spirit of unity and shared purpose. Lord, lead us to proper channels to connect with the partners of our community to provide the best for our citizens. Lead our minds and our words to band together with the leadership of our schools, surrounding townships, and community organizations to protect Johnstown's past so we may celebrate it in the future, fortify our foundation so we can stand securely, and also allow us to position ourselves to lead forward together. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Was that Chat GPT or AI?
It's good.
That was good.
That is 12 years of parochial school.
That was a good one.
We will be working on, whoever wants to help, we'll be working on the invocations for the next year, contacting local pastors. So if you have a pastor you'd like to nominate to do it, let me know so that we can get them on the schedule for next year. Approval of agenda. We have the agenda. Are there any changes or additions or deletions to it that you guys would like to make?
I have one change to we can tuck in after rules, an update with the Township Liaison Committee.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if we are able to get to item 13 before 7:30, could I recommend that you switch 14 and 15? Our attorney is present and available by phone until 7:30. Now, if it's past 7:30, obviously it's no longer a point.
Okay. Okay. Any other changes? Okay, what is the will of council?
Motion to amend the agenda based upon Member Seelan's request and the city manager's request.
Number 2, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, action on minutes. We have 2 meetings, or 2 minutes, sets of minutes. The October 28th special council meeting and the November 6th, 2024 council meeting. Has anyone found anything in those minutes that they'd like to change or add? Hearing none, what is the will of council on these 2 items?
Make a motion to approve October 28th special meeting and November 6th meeting minutes as written.
Second.
Are all in favor of approval?
Aye.
And opposed?
Okay, we're going to get to citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda. I have an item I'd like to read that we received an email this week. It was addressed to Mr. Liggett and myself, and I believe Sean. It states, I am writing to extend my deepest gratitude to your exceptional staff members, David Nichols and Shelley Ashbrook, for their outstanding service and proactive measures. They addressed a critical issue with the recent water usage at my residence in Johnstown. On Thursday, November 14th, 2024, at approximately 11:30 a.m., David unexpectedly arrived at my home to inform me that his office had received a high water usage alert for my water meter. The water had been continually running since Sunday, November 10th, until they received a system alert on the morning of November 14th. His dedication and thoroughness was evident as he meticulously checked all potential sources of the issue, both outside and inside of my house, before discovering the actual culprit, the sump pump. Unbeknownst to me, my water-powered backup sump pump had a faulty check valve, causing it to run continuously, which led to abnormally high water consumption. Had it not been for David's diligence and Shelley's keen awareness to take swift action, the situation could have continued unnoticed, resulting in significantly higher water bills and potential water damage. The professionalism and prompt response prevented an already serious issue from escalating to something even worse. I truly appreciate the dedication and customer-focused approach demonstrated by your staff. Actions not only exemplify the high standards of service, care, and commitment that the City of Johnstown Service Department provides its residents, but also the pride they take in their work. So if you guys could let Shelley and Mr. Nichols know, it was greatly appreciated. That is from Ms. Corey Campbell. So it is always nice to get an email like that. But moving on to citizen comments, do we have any citizens' comments tonight? None? Okay. Council committee reports. Planning and zoning, they met November 12th. Their next meeting is November 26th at 6:30 in council chambers. Anything to report from that planning and zoning meeting?
We had discussion on a zoning amendment, and we will be seeing that here coming to council shortly.
Design Review Board met 11/12/2024. Their next is 11/26 at 5:30 in council chambers. I do have a note that the design review standard meeting will start tomorrow. Is that true? Okay. So if you're interested in coming and watching or listening and inputting, was there anything to report from that 11/12 meeting?
They approved the sign for the barber shop on Main Street.
Okay.
That was the only application, and then they did a review of some zoning, which I believe you are highlighting in your manager's report.
Correct. I can bring it up in the manager's report or I can do it now.
The manager's report's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Finance, we met a lot. We met the 14th, 18th, and 19th, and the next is to be determined, hopefully not till next year. Council all received the budget tonight, so you'll have 2 weeks to review it. The first reading will be on the 3rd. Some highlights of the budget. We're recommending 4 new employees, which would be an additional police officer, an additional street worker, a city planner, and an economic development director. 3 of those 4 positions are not new, or they're not new positions. They're refilling positions that have been empty for some time. So those are the 4 new employees. We're moving our carryover in the general fund, from the general fund over to, what is that fund called? Budget Stabilization Fund. This is more like a rainy day fund, and it'll help us reestablish our bond rating. We also have money in there set aside for road projects for Douglas Street. Sorry, that's my blood sugar meter. For Douglas Street to be totally redone, Liberty, Pershing, McCracking, Druin, and Fairview and Recreation to all have meal and fill. So that we have money in the budget for those. And then up to a 4% increase in wages for all employees.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, because there may be an audience that's listening, we submitted applications for the OPWC, so I didn't want someone to walk away from tonight's meeting thinking that Douglas and all of those roads were going to get done.
Correct.
They are a part of an application with OPWC, which has a significant amount of those projects being funded through the OPWC. If that funding were not to be approved by OPWC, it would obviously limit our ability to do those projects. I just
Yes.
wanted to clarify
Yes,
that.
totally,
That
you're
way
right.
People weren't thinking, my road's getting done next year. It may be, but we'll find out probably first quarter of 2025.
So you do have the budget, so please go over it, come up with all your questions so that we have them for the next meeting. And we also recommended the resolution that will be coming up here in a little bit, so that will be on there also. Safety and Service, their November 6th meeting was canceled. Their next is December 3rd at 5:45 in council chambers. Rules Committee, we met tonight at the council chambers. Anything you'd like to go over, Bob?
We looked at a policy for honorary street sign naming. We've got some things blocked out. You'll see that in a coming council meeting packet, if you want to review it closely. But just kind of lays out the process, who's eligible, and any funds associated with street naming. We also reviewed the rules of council. And if anyone in the audience or at home has their rules in front of them, they can follow along and make these notations. But this will also appear in a future council meeting packet that can be picked up and reviewed in detail. But essentially, we just updated some of the requirements to speak. One is to fill out the speaker slip, which is pretty standard. People have been doing it for a while. Formalize the time to speak, which would be 3 minutes from anyone in the public addressing the council, with the addition of 1 minute at the discretion of the presiding officer, and there'll be no yielding of time. We added a couple terms for appropriate responses to any legislative action we do up here, and that pretty much wraps it up. But again, all these will come in one of the December meetings. They'll be in the council packet, which is public record, that you can view.
Okay, thank you. Next, we had Township Liaison Committee. Mr. Seelan, if you'd like to go over that.
So we met last month. Our next meeting, and Teresa sent you these notes, so you don't have to worry too much about this part. Our next meeting is confirmed for this Thursday, November 21st, 4 PM here. We'll affirm our mission statement. Currently, right now, the mission statement is as reads: the Township Liaison Committee of the City of Johnstown provides the opportunity for dialogue between neighboring and strategically aligned townships to engage in collaborative evaluation of ongoing challenges and offer a forum where best practices and successful plans can be shared in the spirit of partnership. We've identified 9 townships and municipalities around us.
What are they?
And mostly townships, because again, the link between cities, obviously, best held, from the mayor and the council president position. Monroe Town, I would be looking at Monroe Township, St. Albans, and Union. West would be looking at Jersey, Liberty, and Bennington. Bennington was added to your list. And then Tiffany with Plain, Hartford, and McKean. Then we will look at, and this will be proposed for the next meeting schedule, the cadence. And then the next meeting would, after this meeting, would probably be targeted for January 9th, but we'll confirm that once we meet Thursday.
Awesome, thank you. We received direct reports from the police chief and the city manager. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Smart on his report?
I do.
Okay.
Chief, on your calls for service, we're at a little more than 6,000 total. Last year, there were 3,600 roughly. It seems the uptick is officer-initiated calls.
No, the uptick would be the business checks. The way we're doing it in the CAD system has changed from last year to this year. I informed council of that, I believe, in March or April of this year.
I'm looking specifically at officer-initiated.
If you do look at officer-initiated calls, that number went up from 84 in January to 442 in February and stayed in the 400s. Is that just because of the business checks?
That would probably be because of the business checks, the business checks and the house checks.
Okay.
I actually asked him that question the other night because I had the same question, so. Anybody else with questions for Chief Smart? Okay. The city manager report. Does anyone have questions for city manager? I have one for him. My question is the stream impact study with the sewer plant that came from the MPDBS permit. Mostly it was the Ashbrook family and a couple other families that feel the wrath of the stream. Have we looked at to see how much that stream impact study would be?
So, thanks for bringing that up. That's one that I had started, I was gonna bring up, so you saved me some of that. And if you don't mind, I'll expand just
Yes,
slightly.
please.
So at the MPDS permit, and I'll cover this in the manager's report, the hearing was attended by approximately 20 individuals. There was one question raised about the technology for the use of our plant being somewhat new. We have a pretty significant supporting documents to verify the efficiencies and the technology being adequate for our uses, if not over adequate. But the bulk of the public comments related to the impact the plant would have on increasing flooding downstream. So obviously the property owners that are downstream of the plant voice concerns of any additional effluent adding to some flooding issues that they're having. To rope another conversation that was had a little bit earlier in the year, we realized that the Concord Crossing East area is also having some impact on that same stream. At the meeting, because of the questions and comments that were given, I quickly discussed possibility of doing an impact analysis. Asked Steve Samuels, city's attorney, all things related to water and sewer and environmental, I said, what would something like that cost? He said, if it is something that council wants to explore, I could probably get you a cost from some type of engineering firm or some type of stream study firm. So if that is something you want me to explore further, I can reach out to Steve, find out who he would recommend, just at a high level, and then probably give a more granular option as well. But just a high level piece at the beginning. So if you want that, I can go ahead and do that. I don't know that we have enough in our current budget for the remainder of the year. I believe next year we will have some costs associated with that built in for some, I want to say, contractual or legal services or engineering services, and those line items associated with it. So his first blush, and I hate to give you a number because if it comes back much higher, I don't want to negatively impact your decision. He said it could be done for probably somewhere around the $5,000 to $6,000 range based on some of his earlier experiences. So if that's something you want me to explore, I can certainly do so.
Is this something that's done once or kind of various times throughout the year, or how does that work, do you know?
That's a great question. I think, and I'm going to dive into terms that I am not an engineer or a scientist, but whenever they're looking at just any MPDS permit, they're looking at the flow of the current stream. And so they have some calculated numbers on the current flow of that stream. Then they'll look at, obviously, how much effluent we're going to be putting into that stream and what percentage that effluent will produce and increase that stream. But I think the main thing is during a flooding event, they're going to have to get some quantified numbers. I think some of the good news is the county is actually doing some flood study associated with Raccoon Creek. Christy Hawthorne from Lincoln County Water and Soil texted me last week, and she was on the property, meeting with the property owners associated with that stream in the specific flood areas. So I think we'll be able to leverage some of the work that they're doing. I believe they're doing some 2D modeling. And now that's a watershed situation. They did that on the South Fork King River, I want to say a year or two ago. It was done by EMH&T, and it was a 3D modeling. It's kind of cool. I think they're looking to do that in the Raccoon Creek area, but a little bit lighter as far as the technicals and granulars of that go. So I would imagine this would be a one-time situation, looking at the plant, and they could say all the way from the 2.4 up to the 4.8, but it really depends. If you just want to have them look at the current status, which would be from a 1.2 to a 2.4, they could do that, but I don't think it would be that much more expansive to just do the entire piece of that particular plant, take it to the 4.8 and see what kind of impact it has.
The resident concern was just an ask to do it, or can you expand on that, or?
Sure. The residents' concern is they're having flooding issues in that particular area of their property right now.
What property were we referring?
It's right across the street from the sewer plant, the Ashbrook property that flows.
So it's I don't, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So, and I don't want to mention names, but I think the only way I'm going to be able to, so if I get in trouble later on, I apologize. But some of the property owners that are next to that stream, one would be the Dunn property. We haven't heard too much from them. They're probably the closest to our plant. I think where it's downstream is the Almendinger property as well as the Ford property. And there's some other properties associated with that. I believe Evans also has another piece that's contiguous to it. So there was concern by both of those family members at the MPDS permit. So just going from a technical piece, the Fords and the Almendingers expressed concerns on increasing the flow on a daily basis. What would that impact their flooding situation during those heavy rain events? Obviously, if it's flooding now and they're having problems, would this impact that additionally, or is this a drop in the bucket as compared to the amount of water that's being received during those high flood events? Wouldn't know that unless we did some type of study to determine it.
Has anyone from the Wright Farms development contacted you about that too?
We have not heard anything, and I have not heard anything from anybody at the Wright Farms. I believe Jeff Evans' property backs up to that, and then the Wright Farms has a homeowners association parcel that obviously exists in that floodplain, but as far as them reaching out to the city, I don't have any information. Maybe it was before my time.
As we, I think a financial piece is coming up here about for design engineering fees for the water plant treatment expansion. Will those engineering fees, et cetera, will that be baked in there to do a study at that time?
The current scope of work on the legislation you have before you tonight does not have that included into the scope. So if we wanted to include that into the scope, we most certainly could reach out to the Jacobs Engineering team, ask them if this is something that they felt that they would do. Different engineering of a sort. One is obviously for a sewer plant, the other was obviously for stream studies. All engineering, but different fields of expertise. So we can certainly reach out.
Understood. I feel like that would, if council wanted to do it, that would be the time and place as part of the project. And to my understanding, it's not necessarily required either.
I have gotten no indication from Ohio EPA that it's required, but they are going to take all the comments that they received at the MPDS hearing, evaluate them, and then make a determination based on their view.
So they may say in the permit process to build this, you need to do a stream study.
They may. They very well could. I would say the probability is low, just if I'm being frank. And I'm not trying to splash cold water on any of the items. I think we want to treat resident concerns absolutely with all seriousness and look and evaluate those things to make sure we are not making any detrimental impacts. And we're not a singular player in the flooding that's happening there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we are a piece of the pie, but I stated at the meeting that we want to make good neighbors and good citizens to those that may exist inside the corporation limits as well as those that exist outside, and something that we're doing should not negatively impact, obviously, their quality of life.
I feel like to your point, Sean, about doing the right thing, if you will, making sure we have good neighborly relationships, that during the design and engineering of the plant and where they start to really drill down on what's that flow rate, the timing of, et cetera, it's probably more appropriate to do a stream study then versus now. I'm not saying that they're going to be vastly different, but the science part is more baked into it. And again, if we just went through our general contractor for that, they're going to sub it out to somebody else. You're correct. They're not going to do it themselves unless they have that expertise. They very well may, though, in-house, because you're talking about water treatment, which has to go into a stream. So if the council wanted to do it, I feel like that's the right time to do it.
As additional information, referring to non-linear property, before I took over the street department, which has been a number of years ago, the Concord detention pond over on Concord Road used to regularly fill and flood, and it would take hours for it to go down. Not to my direct knowledge, but I've been told and led to believe that there was an orifice plate on that discharge, obviously to make it a detention basin to hold water back so it released at a slow rate. There is no orifice plate on that detention pond piping at this point. Sean, we've discussed a little bit about checking the flow through those detention ponds, because if that's releasing too quickly, that is impacting the stream past the property that we were discussing. So I think a lot of that flooding is actually coming from the stream coming to the side, not coming down from the wastewater plant. So that might be a place to look as well, as slowing down that flow, maybe not directed from the wastewater plant, but during these storms we've been getting, as you all know, they're coming heavier and faster.
That's what's
Well,
causing.
that's where the retention basin, if it is not working properly, I keep saying retention, but I mean detention. If that detention basin is not working properly, it's releasing that flow at a much faster rate than what it should, which I think is one of the main impacts to this property. So maybe a look at the retention ponds and their release rate is warranted here. Every bit as much as a stream study that a sewer plant would impact.
I would also be curious
Does
to
that make
know.
sense?
Yeah, it does to me. I would be curious to know the impact that all of the development on Mink and, you know, that whole area over there. 'Cause, I mean, I know growing up there, it was always wet, soaking wet. You know, Miller Road, Green Chapel, all of it is just always soaking wet. So obviously with all the construction going on there, that water's gotta be going somewhere. So I wonder if that has had any impact on, more so than what the city's output is impacting that area. Maybe combined together, I don't know.
I'm going to pile on with Jack's. If you recall, 3-4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago at this point, there was a proposal being presented to you by EMH&T to study that area. It's not a simple, obviously, reattach a plate. There's been development upstream of that, so I would not want to look at that in a singular situation of that specific detention pond because of the other ponds that have been connected to it and things that have happened along the way. So that's something that was presented, like I said, about 4 to 5 months ago. That study came in right around $34,000, and that's just a study. That's not necessarily going to have any cost associated with the physical improvements necessary. That's going to give you some guidance at a high level, and then even the engineer stated, it's a pretty complex problem that involves multiple property owners, one of which is us, but private residents as well as homeowners associations. This would be a good opportunity for the city to fix that problem. Would probably need to have some type of grant funding associated with it. It's a pretty heavy lift, so you're going to need public, private, and probably some grant monies. What I mean by private is some property owners that are personally impacted that may need an easement. There's a pipe that runs under somebody's property. We don't have an easement to that. So those are all things that are going to have to be baked into that greater evaluation. If that's something that you would like to press forward in 2025, I don't know that it's specifically outlined in our budget. We do have some general engineering fees associated with it. I could pull some from there, but that would be a pretty big chunk out of that, and that would leave us short in the general engineering piece. So if that's something that you do have interest on with that study, we can add that to next year's line item. And we don't have to at this time. If you want to come back to that conversation later in 2025, and you can always appropriate funds if you decide after a committee meeting that this is something you want to move forward with, we can do that as well. The sewer plant, I think, Jeff, that's a great idea. Let me connect with the engineers, see what I'm hearing, the temperature in the room. We at least want to get a number, what it looks like for the wastewater treatment plant. We'll keep the two items separate for now. That plant piece of it, because that was a specific question. Let me get you some numbers. That was the expectation of this request, and I think I've received that. I'll get you some hard numbers on what that would cost, who would do it, what would be the timeline, and then you guys can make a decision based on more accurate information. Good?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There's probably a rainwater management survey study associated with the development out there. It has to be. I'd be interested to see how it was directed, where it was directed, how it fits into this puzzle, if at all.
You're talking about Concord East.
No, I'm talking about the development property out on Green Chapel.
So that's out on Green Chapel. That's outside the city's corporation limits.
But the state doesn't require rainwater management?
I believe, are you talking about the Intel site
So,
specifically?
into any of the development sites out there, they've clearly changed the direction of water.
Not necessarily. The watersheds and how they have to work these is they, from an engineering perspective, they have to create retention ponds, and they can't release water at a rate faster than what was originally released at. So what'll happen is the rate of it will fall, it'll go into the catch basins you all trudge through in the parking lot, and then it'll go to a holding pond. Some of those ponds are retention, which keeps water in them all the time. Some of them are detention, which becomes dry afterwards. They both.
That would be impacting the downstream flow that we're seeing potentially. What I want to do is make sure that whatever's contributing to the flooding down there doesn't land on the city to correct if it's outside the city's purview.
Correct. I would, yeah. I would say yes, that's not the expectation. We would have no liability since we are not the ones administering it.
I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying that, things have changed. That makes
Yep.
worth a peek.
Okay, anything else in your report you want to go over, Sean?
Some items that I've starred, economic development. We walked through some legislation, obviously, for the PD district recently, but I want to take this opportunity to highlight it. We've gotten some green light from this particular company that they are ready for us to release, although, like I said, it was in some documentation that was presented to council and passed by council for the NCA creation, as well as some CRAs and things of that nature. So the city is pleased to announce that Cologis, a leader in data center industry, has made an investment in our community to support the technological needs of its partners. Cologic, I think, chose Johnstown, and it shows that Johnstown is a confirmation that it's updating our planning policies are paying off. This will be a nice catalyst project for the positive momentum out in the PD district. So this is the first of hopefully many projects that are going to happen out there. We'll start to provide some revenue, much needed revenue for the city. And this is exactly the items that we wanted to address whenever council took it upon themselves to redesignate that area, partner with that particular development, and move that project forward. So we've already got a purchase over the land, and we've already got some development that's going to happen in the not too distant future. Obviously, we've got to get some infrastructure things happening first before they can get off the ground, but they have purchased it and they're ready to make a commitment. So we're excited to see that. Moving on, union negotiations, just a real quick highlight. Our originally scheduled meeting for November 18th, just as a correction, did not happen. There was some scheduling difficulties with one of the party members, so we will be meeting in November 25th. That will be our first meeting. And then Design Review Board, the item that I did not bring up at the Design Review Board minutes, the board had some discussion. I don't know that they made a formal recommendation, but I felt that it was discussed enough that I wanted to bring it to your attention. And I don't disagree with this. And as we roll through our fee structure for permits, we did that last year. We always find things that are lacking, but one thing that they wanted to specify was recommending a fee associated with demolition of a small secondary structure under 750 square feet to be reduced to the sum of 25. Currently, we have it kind of all under one umbrella or two umbrellas. The cheapest you can probably get into that is about 700. We had a certain situation that existed, and those are always your learning moments. A structure probably no bigger than some of your sheds at your house. However, it did have a foundation. If it was a shed, obviously it's a movable piece of well, we'll just leave it at that. It's movable. With a foundation, then it constitutes as a structure that's permanently affixed to the ground. Under the letter of the law, it technically has to have a demolition permit, which for that particular family or individual or even company would come to the cost of about $700. I don't think it's the intent of the city to prevent people from taking down dilapidated structures. Usually there's a view and a value benefit for the city from an aesthetic standpoint. So we don't want to make the barrier to entry of the beautification a $700 one when it probably costs less than that to demolish. So recommendation that we all kind of worked on was setting that sum at $25. Now that's for the secondary structure. If somebody wanted a primary structure, whether it be a house or the primary business. This applies to both commercial and residentially situated properties. But 750 was kind of that square footage number we felt maybe comfortable with. So, and this may evolve and ebb and flow over time, so. If that is something that you all are somewhat agreeable to, I can have it work through the proper channels for a proper recommendation, or if we get a nod that this is something you like, Teresa and I can adjust the fee permit schedule, bring it to you at a council meeting in the near future, and then you can pass or deny accordingly. I use the word deny just for fun. I didn't know. if
I'd
there
like
was
to
a
see it. I mean, I know looking at some of the fees and things of what we see in design review and what we see in zoning, I think, last year and the years past when we took a look at all the fees, I think there were some unintended consequences in there that led to construction projects being more time consuming on the permitting end and planning end and more costly than what was intended from council. So I don't want to see a barrier to, fixing up your property with what you have. I don't want to see home improvements stall. I don't want to see basic maintenance stall in the city. I want people to be able to do that easily. So I think we should probably take a look at what we're doing there.
I'll have Teresa and I draft something. We're gonna meet with design review before we're next meeting with you all, so we'll put a physical document in front of them, maybe a formal recommendation. They can give it to council, then you all can act accordingly.
Can we also look at, and I've never seen the list of like permit fees for new businesses coming in. We've had several, on Main Street, and just through talking with business owners, it's very costly, coming in as a new business, especially as a small business. So if we can at least look at it,
Sure.
I think that and maybe streamline some stuff somewhere along the lines. I don't know, but I know that I got in conversation with multiple new businesses, and it's tough to open a new business, and it's hard when your biggest cost is permit fees. That we can't do that to Main Street. So if we can look at that, I would be happy about that.
We'll get the entire list, and that way you guys will have and that's how I think we presented it last year. It'll be a complete list of all the permit fees and.
And maybe
you guys-
once we have the historic overlay too, like that'll change some stuff too, but
Absolutely.
if we can just kind of tighten it a little bit.
Always room for improvement.
Okay. Anything else, Sean?
Dare you ask? I think that is the highlight reel, but, one other. JET agreement, I'll actually leave that alone. I think Dave handled that terrifically in his, or will. I'll let you handle that. I think you handled it really well in some of the talks that you were gonna have. So, you'll have a JED piece, is in the last month's report, and tonight you'll have an opportunity to evaluate some red line versions of it. So that was initiated from Monroe Township, so that's another piece. But happy to answer any other questions that are associated with the manager's report.
Anybody else? Okay. There's no table legislation, public hearings of legislation. Resolution 2024-46, a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water pollution control loan fund agreement on behalf of the city of Johnstown for planning, design, and/or construction of wastewater facilities, and designate a dedicated repayment source for the loan. Mr. Sainer, if you could explain this to the rest of council.
Sure.
This is being recommended by Finance 3-0 to move forward with this.
Absolutely. Give me one moment. My computer's lagging a little bit. But
Say that your attorney on the executive session was only available till 7:30.
he did. I'm going to roll through this quick and we'll see what happens.
Didn't have to want to do something.
No, I know. Trying. Putting pressure on me over here. Okay. So what this is if you remember, earlier in the year, we discussed obviously the expansion of the water treatment facility as well as moving forward, at least in engineering with the wastewater treatment plant. So water, we are full steam ahead. Engineering, mostly complete, if not all the way complete by now. And then construction, hopefully starting maybe next year. Wastewater treatment, we're at the engineering stage of that. So some of that has already taken place. Indicated last summer from you all moving forward, there's an engineering component that has to be done, and those are loans that we can utilize unless you want to pay for it cash. But I think a loan is a great option. And as I explained to Finance Committee, the engineering piece of it is typically amortized, I believe, over 5 to 10 years. But as soon as you start the project, you can actually wrap the engineering fee into the total loan for the entire treatment plant. So, and that is probably 100% of the time is what happens. So with this, this is a resolution because it is a government loan. We have to have some type of resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract to initiate this loan for the engineering for the wastewater treatment plant. Any questions? And I think I already know the one was discussed. I wanted to give you a hard number. Engineering costs for the wastewater treatment plant is roughly $4 million, but I want to give you a hard number. And is there any other questions while I'm looking for that? All right, so with no other questions, it means I need to move faster.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll fill a little time for Sean. We also discussed in finance that this design, this engineering, has shelf life. It doesn't mean that when the design and engineering's done, we have to move straight into action, into construction. It can exist on its own for a while on the shelf and then be utilized in the future. And which Jeff made a great point. At some point, we're going to use it, so it will be less expensive today than it will ever be.
Thank you, Bob. Great filler. 4.1 million. So is the estimated cost for the engineering. Obviously, you get into different elements and items. It could come in a little higher, it could come in a little lower, but as they're going through the experience and pile on what Bob was saying, a lot of this has to do with timing. We don't want to obviously build the plant too early, but we don't want to build it too late. So right now, we're moving forward with the engineering. And that does not necessarily mean we're going to be building a plant in 2026, 2027. We need to obviously be very prudent, making sure we're not getting out over our skis with that. But obviously, we do anticipate the need to do that. And it's not just a plant expansion, it's a plant improvement. That plant has some age to it, so some of those things down there are going to come to the end of their shelf life. Same thing that's happening with the with the water treatment plant. I want to emphasize there's a number of improvements that need to be done with that plant in the millions of dollar range, just because of the life expectancy. So a lot of times people think we're just doing this for new development. It's not the case. Jack can give us, how old is the sewer plant and how old is the water
Right at
plant?
20 years old. The water, sewer plant's right at 20 years old. The water plant's going on 31.
So shelf life on these, we've obviously got to put some money in to maintain and do some expansion, and that's what this resolution is.
Okay, council have any questions for Mr. Stainer on this? Okay, does the public have any questions, Mr. Stainer? Okay, what is the will of council for resolution 2024-46?
Make a motion to pass resolution 24 dash
What is it?
46 as written.
Second.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Dave Seelan,
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and move to the executive session. Is this for number 15, Sean?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm saying that without looking, so I'm trusting.
That's the one with
Are you going back to back?
probably,
Are you coming out of session?
Yeah.
we'll come out and do other business.
Let's
then
just
go
move
in.
quickly so we can catch yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is to consider negotiation with the other public subdivision? Is this the one with yes?
Yep.
Okay. So I make a motion that we move to executive session to consider negotiations with other public subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance where the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance provided under Chapter 715 of the Ohio Revised Code. This to include all members of council and the city manager.
Second.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seelan.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yeah, yes.
Are you going next door or are we leaving?
I think it's going to be quicker if you guys go next door.
Okay.
And then we can come back after everyone's cleared out or whatever you want to do. Yes.
It got cold in here. You back?
A lot of heat left.
We good? Okay, we're back from executive session. We're moving to other business. I've got a couple things real quick. One thing. Frank Sasso was willing to do a council workshop on December 5th. I think, Wes, you can't do it during the day? Can you do it in the evening?
It would have to be after 5:30 for sure.
Who else couldn't do it? Bob, you're out of town?
I think I'm going the 5th and the 6th.
What's the objective of this?
It's a council workshop to work better together, go over techniques, things we can do to. If we can't do it, we can't do it.
I'm going the 4th and the 5th.
Okay. Dave, you couldn't do it during the day?
Yep.
Anyone else available is everyone available that night except Bob?
I'm not interested.
I'm booked that.
Not that, it's not meaning saying that in an adversarial way. I deal with this every single day.
I will let him know and the other parties that there's not interest. Okay.
Now, if I felt like Wes needed it, it's a different story.
Okay, that's all I had. Bob, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Jeff?
I do, and then,
You forgot?
yeah.
So we'll skip you. Jeff?
Yep.
Wes?
Nothing I can think of. No.
Ms. Hollis?
No.
Brian?
I do. So for the Johnstown Design Guidelines kickoff meeting is tomorrow. I saw that there was the email that went out. And I was looking at this as far as people that are on this advisory committee, and I was looking at the schedule here. So you're gonna have 4 meetings with this advisory committee, and it looks like they have homework assignments and things. I don't remember creating the advisory committee. The resolution that I have here names the design review board as our steering committee, and that's the only thing that I had from any minutes or anything, and I have the resolution here. I wanted to see how we created this advisory committee and how we picked.
I thought the
members.
advisory committee was design review board.
It is, they're the appointed board, but the direction I got from council after you made the appointments of the official steering committee was that you wanted to include all of the applicants in the process. So if that's changed, I can let NKSK know.
I mean, I know we talked about just having the committee on there just to not dilute the process. Obviously, it's a public meeting, anybody can show up, like, I'm not gonna stop anybody from showing up, but actual conversations being made, voting, anything like that.
The voting would just be the,
There would be no voting from anybody but the appointed board, if there's voting at all.
so the only people voting would be design review board.
Yes,
Okay.
If
because
there's
they were the
voting,
appointments
there's
you
voting.
made,
but there's no voting.
and I don't know what they'd vote on it.
If there's any
But-
recommendations crafted,
Right.
anything like that, I don't want we wanted to keep it to a concise group.
Yeah, you guys appointed the 5 members, who is now down to 4 members, of the design review board. So there's 4 appointed members to the steering committee.
Okay.
But I passed along the emails of the applicants who applied for the steering committee, because that was the direction I got at one point
Okay.
from you all, because you wanted them to be involved in the process.
Yeah, I don't mind if they're involved. They can definitely show up and
Yeah.
have feedback. I just wanted to, any decision-forming body just needs to be tight-knit for speed and efficiency. So we do have to, that reminds me, we do have to set up a new member of design review.
Yeah,
'Cause we're
there's a
down one.
vacancy. I think I've notified you of all of that. The vacancy's term was going to be up at the end of the year anyway. So
Oh, okay.
a new term will be starting January 1st anyway.
Do you want Teresa to go ahead and post that?
Starting January 1?
I think you could post it now, and
I mean,
realistically, it's not gonna
But,
start
yeah.
till
but posted their
January 1.
term starts January 1.
Right.
Just to,
Yeah, anybody you would appoint,
Not
let's say
much
you
to
appoint them in December, it's gonna expire now. Hypothetically, you
Right.
could reappoint them, but.
We only have
Um,
one meeting.
because this is kind of like that 30-day rule, right?
Well, they'll have 2, but
Yeah.
by the time they're on.
Well, that'll let us have, we can do, we have 2 meetings in December, so if we put it out now, then,
There's just
or
one meeting
one meeting.
for zoning and design review board, just the first Wednesday.
The council has two.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first and second Tuesday.
So if we appoint at the last meeting, they can roll right in at the beginning of the year.
I'll make sure we have time to get good candidates.
That'll give us time, yeah, that'll give us time with holidays and everything like that for people to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I can get it out. What do you want me to put as a deadline?
That Friday before the second meeting.
Okay, so if I get it out tomorrow,
Is that good with everybody?
the deadline for
It'll be the 13th then.
applications. Your
Friday.
council meetings are the 3rd and the 10th,
Okay, that's right.
right?
Correct.
Unless you want to schedule more.
Yep.
So if I get it out tomorrow, do you want to interview on the 3rd or the 10th?
How long would that give people to apply?
Well,
Yeah,
next
that's
Wednesday
tight.
would be a week.
Can we interview them in January?
Yes.
Yeah. When's the first meeting in January?
It'll be January 7th.
Because we have a meeting before they'll have a meeting in January.
Our first meeting will be on the 7th.
Yes.
Theirs would be on the
That next
14th.
Tuesday.
14th,
Yeah.
right.
So let's appoint on the 7th then. Interview and appoint.
interview
on
and
the
appoint.
7th.
Interview and appoint on the
Yeah.
7th?
Yep.
So leave the applications open until what?
We'll have Santa bring them.
Sorry, what?
We'll have Santa bring the applications.
Friday after Christmas. 27th.
27th?
Yep.
Wait, so ours is.
Ours is here.
We're doing it on the 7th, so
Yes.
if they can send them in until the 3rd.
No, I would say the 27th, and then we can review
got
them
time
through
to-
this
Okay.
week, and
Yeah,
then we
that's
can
fine.
interview on the 7th.
That's fine.
Okay, Jeff, did you remember your other business?
I do. I hate having, I wouldn't call it another meeting, but a workshop. I don't know if it's the end of this year or it's the beginning of next year, but a meeting where we can specifically focus on, what's JAG now being called?
Municipal Utility Coalition of Licking County.
MUSL.
Yeah.
Mucklick.
Metamucil.
It's called Mucklick.
Where maybe it's a little more in-depth report as to where we started, where we're at, updates, expenditures that we've done, what we anticipate in the future.
That'd be good.
What's that look like? You know, where it's just focusing on that. I don't know if it needs to be an executive session or if it's allowed to be an executive session, would we want it to be an executive session? I don't think it's a meeting. I think it's a workshop so that questions and answers can flow more easily. We can certainly set the ground rules of such a workshop that we're not taking any public comment. We're not taking any questions if we wanted to, or open it up, but I'm throwing the question out there to my fellow council members.
No, I think it'd be good after New Year.
Okay.
Mirror that.
How's everybody else feel about it? After the new year?
Mirror that.
Before the new year?
Probably after, we got lots of stuff to run into the holiday season.
I think at the beginning of the new year. I mean, we need to have some conversations about expectations, realities, and where people are, what our goals are, if there's off ramps for people, things like
I
that.
mean, obviously.
So,
Maybe then before the new year, we all need to have our own like,
Questions.
Yes.
Good point.
Prepared.
do we get something on the calendar now?
Yeah, I think that's good. Do we have any other envoy meetings there?
Is this the delegation?
Or the delegation, whatever we called it, the envoy delegation?
So-
You're on it. I know. So what do we have?
We didn't, I don't
And-
think we set any follow-up
You know,
meetings.
giving
That's a shame.
It is.
Sean and Dave are
So
gonna
they
have to
were-
get some information and things
The
together
operators are-
as well, so we wanna be mindful of giving them some time with the holidays, but. So our first meeting's on the 7th, the second one's on the 21st. Do we do something on the 14th as a workshop? Or planning and zoning or design review board be on the 14th or anything?
They would be,
Plan.
yeah.
14th and 28th.
Yeah, we
14th.
won't know till 2 weeks before if we can cancel one.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Go through the formal process. I'm glad you brought it up, Jeff, because I was wanting to have that. So I think our headspace is in the same. I wanted an opportunity to give you guys an update because I think some things have obviously happened, and you guys need an update. And so I'm glad you brought it up. So that way it is something that you all are thinking of as well. So let me get with kind of the parties that I think would be helpful. And I think having questions ahead of time is a really good way to go. But obviously, I'll need to coordinate this with the engineers, attorneys, some legals, and all that other jazz, so that they can be ready to answer your questions and to give updates. I think the biggest thing is to give you an update.
Point to have, you would plan to have them there as well.
I think it would be helpful
Okay.
from an expert resource, and just they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to speak to any questions that come up during the conversation. But yeah, if you want, I can reach out, and I think setting something up early January, if that's what you want me to shoot for, I'll definitely shoot for that.
In the month of January, no later than middle of February, I feel like that time period's, I don't know how everybody else feels. Is it
Yeah, we'll-
slow with family and kid activity and job activity?
No, I love it.
Wes?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll definitely slow down.
Go with it.
Okay, so sometime no later than middle of February.
I'll get it set up. Perfect.
And are you thinking this is like a evening kind of time frame or
Sure.
late afternoon, starting at 5 o'clock, starting at 6:30? I'm asking, I'm just,
After 5 is always better for me. It's either gotta be early morning or after 5.
okay.
Probably the same for Dave and most of you guys too.
After 4 o'clock's good for me.
After 4?
Yeah, I can do 4. I want
Yeah.
to be respectful of staff time.
Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
Is it better for staff to have it like at that late afternoon or give time to eat, do whatever, go home?
I would
Walk
say
the
late
dog.
afternoon's always going to be better.
Say that again?
Late afternoon would be
So
good.
you're saying the earliest you could do, Ryan, is
I can always make it work, but I'm just saying if we were throwing out
like
times-
no earlier than 4,
Yeah,
but 5 is better.
yeah, that's fine. I was just throwing out a time.
I want us all to be there,
Yeah.
so 5 o'clock-ish?
And if it's not on a Tuesday, is there a preferred day? Like a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Monday? What do you guys, I mean, some families just like, nope, Wednesday's always this and I don't want to invade that time.
Thursday is my day I pack everything into. Because I have Tuesday every week. And then.
So try to stay away from
Wednesday.
Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
That's fine.
me. I mean, I can make them work, but that's the day I try to shove.
I'm flexible,
everything
so
into.
Okay. I'll look at Wednesday then. Or a Monday. I'll avoid Friday.
Monday's not good.
Monday's no good. So Wednesday, this is what I wanted. Perfect. Wednesday is the day I will shoot for, early January. And if you can, absolutely, get us some questions. Would love to understand.
So once that date gets done, I'll take the lead of saying, I mean, if we're gonna have it to, I saw the Green Mile again the other night, that I'll harass you, council members, to, get some questions, and I'll do that piece, Sean, because I know we're part-time, underpaid council members that will forget, and so I'll do that piece to
Appreciate it.
move it along, so you don't have to,
Okay.
of questions.
You have anything else, Jeff?
I yield my time.
Hey, Dave.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. American Legion raised $1,300 in their Legion breakfast this past weekend. It was very busy, very well attended. The next one, that benefited the Johnstown Northridge Scholarship Fund. Next breakfast is the 21st, which is also the same date as the Wreath Across America, so that's on the gazebo downtown. And December 21st will benefit the Children's Conservation League. And fireworks crew, this topic came up at the breakfast. So through finance, understood that 10K is still budgeted through the city to.
It's a great point, Dave, that I think you should know that what we talked about, or do you want to share this, Donnie?
No, you go ahead.
That the 10K is on the table, but it's going to go to the recreation district. That's what they're there for, and therefore, direction, ad hoc committee, whatever, running with fireworks needs to work through the recreation district.
Yeah, and that's, you kind of beat me to the punch on that.
Oh, you already knew this?
Well, not that part specifically, but again, if the contributions, because the city can't, the city can take money, but the city, and Tiffany, you guys handled this last year, and other nonprofits, local nonprofits handled it, where contributions were collected, gathered, through those other nonprofits, and then.
Corporate sponsorships.
Through corporate sponsorships. You want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, we just did the chamber accepted corporate sponsorships towards the fireworks, and then the chamber paid that portion of it
As far as the financial backing piece.
because the city can't accept
No, we certainly can't.
sponsorship money. So that's why
We can, we did, it's just not tax deductible.
It's not great.
It's not good, yeah, it's not
Maybe
perfect.
we should have the council chambers sponsored by,
Pepsi.
We can put a sign up here.
yeah. Get new desks, new
Yeah.
microphones.
But yeah, so the fireworks crew, there's an email that's out there that is connected with Bentley. Bentley is helping us handhold this process. He's handled it in years past. So he's continuing to handhold this through this process, through this entire year and into the 2025 fireworks. John Marin and myself are helping to be handheld through this process. And then obviously there's an email chain with the other working part components of that, Rusty, Fire Chief, Legion, everyone like that. And the next meeting is TBD, but once that TBD is clarified, I'll share it with the team.
So just to clarify, because I know your piece of it, but are you saying that the Parks and Rec is going to absorb the fireworks event completely?
No, we got Jeff.
I brought it up in finance committee that yes-ish is the money is with them. Dave and John should, not that they're solely responsible for it, but that would be a typical function that a recreation district would do. And yes, volunteers could certainly do it, but to try to start passing some stuff that would traditionally belong to a recreation district,
Okay.
to let them manage it, for lack of better words, through them, so the money will be, because if I'm not mistaken, when we first got started, Teresa, the treasurer, or our finance director at the time, cut a check for some seed money, so it'd be the same way of just literally cutting a check to the recreation district. That way, the recreation district gets involved with this process as well too. And Dave, you know Mike Giannini, the chairperson.
Yeah.
You guys
And
just
is our
start coordinating.
Parks and Rec committee going to be affiliated with that too, or a part of that also?
I would only speak for myself that if the recreation district gets up and running with funding, that all of this stuff
Should go that way.
should fall under the umbrella that, I forget who it was, maybe it was a school board member, Dr. Wagner, that, they're the gatekeepers of these things, that this special event by organization ABC XYZ wants to use the space in town for a car show or whatever the case may be. The clearinghouse is the recreation district. Yeah, the Greater Johnstown Recreation District. So for a period of time, you know, the different organizations working together with the recreation district, maybe taking some lead, maybe taking a backseat, maybe being more partner equal than, rather than taking a lead or backseat. I hope I'm making sense.
My stress with this is through this year's process, is to kind of put a Gantt chart together of timelines, duties, responsibilities, everything from garbage collection to permitting, to insurance, to food truck,
Yep.
to everything, you know, locale, period, and then cleanup, right? Because that was a question, the debris.
I'm sure the recreation district would appreciate all of your work of doing that, because then they have a blueprint.
Exactly, and that's what, where we have the master of ceremonies, Ben, still at our fingertips here. And you know, say he's only not, didn't go too far. But then again, this is what we download everything and have a better package on paper that, again, that this timeline then can then be recreated, regenerated, and then as we develop as a city, turns into an official process.
And my reason for bringing this up, Tiffany, is that we saw what happened at the voting polls for the income tax initiative. As the city grows, whatever that pace may be, for the city to fund Parks and Recreation Services it's not going to be there. So for Recreation and Park Services, if you will, that's what the Recreation District was for. That's why it was formed by Johnstown City Council a couple of years ago and the school board. We should be seeing something from the school board here soon, signaling us to get our legislation in place to extend it from 10 to 30 years. And the ultimate goal is intent that at some point in the future, they're going to likely want to ask property owners in the district to fund the recreation district and provide such services. I went off on a tangent, but the 10 grand is going to the recreation district, Dave.
Earmarked for fireworks.
Yes.
Earmarked for fireworks, and we'll send that right, it'll be in that way that they know they have to spend it on fireworks. But it helps them get involved is really the objective of doing it that way. Not to take away from.
So in perpetuity, the fireworks will be handled by Greater Johnstown Parks and Rec then, after this year, or is there gonna be a separate group, or are the, you know, civic committees that we already have, are they gonna run it, or how's that gonna operate?
I wouldn't say I have it.
Obviously, like, we just want a show that's gonna continue year in, year out, minimal upheaval,
If
kind of automatic.
fast forward, say 5 years from now, and the recreation district is successful at passing a levy, right? They're going to have funds that would be available to them to incrementally add to the fireworks show if they wanted to. 1 minute of fireworks cost about $1,000 a minute, from
Right.
my experience.
Oh, they're expensive.
They're expensive, right?
Yeah.
So, no, it was a good show, always has been, you know, everybody always wants a little bit more, but when you start to think about, like Dave said, with a Gantt chart of food trucks and the safety aspect of it and the liability things, sooner or later, if the recreation district is successful, they'd hire likely maybe starting out with a part-time professional, eventually getting to a full-time, that those things, if there's a volunteer group, great, but that person would potentially lead that committee of kind of taking over that function of coordinating the work where, hey, I'm the food truck guy, Dave's the safety guy, those kinds of things, through volunteerism.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just to backstop Jeff a little bit, we don't know exactly what's gonna happen, but I think the discussion, the intent was to put infrastructure in place. Let's build an organization that can grow and self-sustain versus relying on the volunteers or the individual to do it. Because as we all know, the better the volunteer group, the better the organization, and we don't want ebbs and flows in what happens.
Right.
We want to have an organization with structure underneath of it, where the city provides some of the funding, hopefully it can become completely self-funding, and then those funds can be redirected by the city for other things to, again, build that same infrastructure and organizations they can grow and self-sustain.
Right.
This isn't a pool or control or anything like that. It's really to put the tools into place so that the organizations can build out. And I think we're fortunate now to have Dave be involved on the committee because we have a little bit more insight, a little more communication consistently with what the interaction looks like. But in my mind, really, anything that involves parks and recreation in the city of Johnstown should be managed by the Park and Recreation Board. We have to get some legs under it. There's a lot of steps between here and then, but
Right.
we got to start putting structure into place.
No, I'm for it. We had the events committee that was an appointed group that we had. We disbanded that last year. So then we kind of have been left, things getting filled on their own. So that's kind of where, that's
I
where
think
I'm
it
like,
seems to be a
where does
natural
the framework come back in? Because we had framework. It's kind of,
Again, the events committee, it was a volunteer group again.
well, it was the events committee because they were appointed. We had people appointed from council.
But still, it was a volunteer position.
Right.
And I want to get away from that. I want to get at least some
Well,
administrative
that's,
position.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm for it. I want to see.
Yeah, and it seems like a natural flow
Right.
going that way to the recreation board, recreation district of doing those things.
Yeah.
Just slightly different look and feel, but it's still the same concept of what Bob had just said. There's still volunteerism behind it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, that's all. Thanks for understanding.
Okay. Dave, anything else?
Nothing right now.
Sean? Okay. Teresa?
Maybe one quick thing. In the email, I think when I notified you about the vacancy on design review board, the personnel review board is also gonna have a vacancy come January 15th. I don't know if I should, I don't recall anything special for that other than advertising. I can generally run that too.
Yeah. Yep. Same timeline.
I think it's fair to say in general, whenever we have a position become open, you can take it upon yourself to advertise to fill it.
Efficiency.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'll make a motion. We move to executive session to consider the purchase of property, include all of council and Mr. Stinger.
No business to follow?
No business to follow.
Second.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Dave Sealand,
Yes.
Brian Green,
Yes.
and Alice.
Yes.